Hello everyone. Today we're diving into a royal scandal that feels like something straight out of a spy thriller, Meghan's Last Stand, and the shocking revelation from MI6 that Archie and Lilibet might not exist. According to a classified investigation known as Operation Phantom, British intelligence has allegedly uncovered one of the most surprising claims to date regarding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Reports suggest that MI6 has determined that Archie and Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor, the children of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, simply do not exist. Yes, you heard that correctly. This isn't merely a minor mix-up, it's a bold assertion claiming that Harry and Meghan's beloved children are nothing more than a product of an elaborate deception. Sources from MI6 indicate that Meghan Markle herself is at the heart of this grand scheme, spinning a web of intrigue around her supposed children to secure her position within the royal narrative and elevate her public image. The details of Operation Phantom have been leaked from within MI6, and if these claims are accurate, this is more than just another minor scandal in the Sussex saga, it's a full-scale espionage-style investigation. The operation reportedly began after intelligence officers noticed inconsistencies in the publicly available information about Archie and Lilibet. From discrepancies in birth certificates to the absence of public appearances, British intelligence grew suspicious and decided to investigate further. What they found, according to these sources, was an elaborate illusion and orchestrated act meant to uphold a facade that served Meghan's ambitions and public image. The MI6 report is said to outline a carefully crafted narrative designed to ensure that Meghan remains a figure of intrigue and importance, keeping her relevant in the public eye while seemingly maintaining her ties to the British royal family. But why would anyone go to such lengths? What could motivate such a bold and bizarre deception? To grasp the alleged motivations behind this, one must examine Meghan Markle's journey from Hollywood actress to Duchess of Sussex. From the start, Meghan has been a controversial figure driven by an unyielding desire to climb the social ladder. When she joined the royal family, many viewed it as her ultimate triumph, the final step in her quest for recognition and status. For global recognition. However, as time passed, it became clear that Meghan's ambitions extended well beyond simply entering the royal circle. Her desire to control her narrative and be seen not just as a duchess, but as a modern-day icon has driven much of her behavior. From her dramatic exit from royal duties to her high-profile interviews and media deals, Meghan has demonstrated an impressive ability to shape public perception. If MI6's findings are accurate, the alleged fabrication of Archie and Lilibet is merely the next phase in this carefully calculated strategy. By creating the illusion of motherhood, Meghan could align herself with traditional values while also portraying herself as a progressive, modern royal woman who seemingly has it all. This approach would also help solidify her connection to the British royal family, ensuring she remains relevant even as she physically distances herself from them. One of the most intriguing questions arising from this shocking revelation is the role of Prince Harry. Is he a co-conspirator in this grand deception, or is he merely a pawn in Meghan's elaborate game? Given his background and upbringing, it's hard to believe that Harry would willingly participate in such a scheme. However, his recent behavior and public statements suggest that he might be more involved than one might initially think. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry has consistently aligned himself with Meghan's narrative, often echoing her sentiments and supporting her decisions, regardless of how controversial they may be. This has led many to speculate that he could be aware of the alleged deception and has chosen to go along with it, either out of loyalty or genuine belief in Meghan's vision. On the other hand, it's also possible that Harry, emotionally vulnerable after the loss of his mother and the ongoing pressures of royal life, has been influenced by Meghan into thinking this is the best path for them moving forward. If Harry is indeed complicit, it raises serious questions about his judgment and how far he is willing to go to support Meghan's ambitions. However, if he is merely a pawn in this scenario, it highlights the level of control Meghan has over him and the lengths she will go to maintain her carefully crafted public image. The public reaction to this revelation has been swift and harsh. Social media has exploded with theories, memes, and endless speculation about what this could mean for Harry and Meghan's future. Critics have seized upon the MI6 findings as proof of what they have long suspected, that Meghan's actions are driven not by genuine emotional conviction, but by a relentless pursuit of attention and validation. The notion that Archie and Lilibet might not even exist is a bombshell that many are struggling to process. It raises questions about everything the couple has claimed regarding their personal lives since leaving the UK. If this revelation turns out to be true, the Sussexes may have built their public image on lies and deception, which could backfire in a big way. While some of their supporters have quickly come to their defense, dismissing the report as just another attempt to discredit Meghan and Harry, they argue that the British establishment is still upset over the couple's departure and their criticism has resorted to desperate measures to undermine them. However, even among their supporters, there's a growing feeling of discomfort, a sense that maybe not everything is as it appears. The British royal family has remained silent on these serious allegations, choosing not to comment publicly. But insiders say the palace is keeping a close eye on the situation and is very worried about what might happen. The idea that any royal family members could be involved in such a deception is damaging not only to Harry and Meghan, but to the entire institution. King Charles and Prince William are said to be weighing their options carefully, fully aware that any wrong move could make an already tense situation worse. Should they keep silent, hoping the controversy fades on its own, or take a more assertive approach by publicly distancing themselves from Harry and Meghan to safeguard the monarchy's reputation? Whatever path they choose, it's clear the royal family is facing a crisis that could have long-lasting effects. The mere suggestion that Archie and Lilibet might not exist could destroy the remaining goodwill the Sussexes have, possibly forcing the royals to take drastic measures to protect their image. For Meghan, this moment is a critical point in her public life. She now has to decide whether to fight these claims with all she's got or step back and try to rebuild her image from a more humble position. Given her past actions, it seems unlikely she would choose to retreat. Meghan has never shied away from controversy, and she will likely turn this latest scandal to her advantage, positioning herself as the target of a smear campaign led by the British establishment. We can expect her to double down on her narrative, using every platform available to discredit the MI6 findings and present herself as a misunderstood figure, unfairly targeted by those threatened by her independence and strength. However, this approach comes with risks. The public is growing tired of the constant drama surrounding Meghan and Harry, and many feel they've had enough. If Meghan pushes too far, she could alienate even her most loyal supporters and confirm her critics' doubts. If the MI6 revelations prove true, the fallout for Harry and Meghan could be serious. It wouldn't just mean the collapse of their carefully crafted public image, it could also lead to significant legal consequences. False statements on official documents, like birth certificates, are taken very seriously, and the consequences could go far beyond just public humiliation. Their reputation as global philanthropists and champions of social justice would be in ruins. The image they've carefully built, a loving family seeking peace and privacy away from the royal spotlight, would be irreparably damaged. The couple might find themselves shunned by both royal and celebrity circles, with few willing to risk their own reputations by standing with them. For the royal family, this could validate their choice to distance themselves from Harry and Meghan. However, it could also be a harsh reminder of the dangers of letting personal disputes spill into the public eye. The damage to the monarchy might take years to repair, and the lessons learned could shape how the institution handles such matters for generations to come. Reflecting on this latest revelation, it's hard not to feel a sense of disbelief. The idea that two children often mentioned in public statements could be fabrications seems almost too bizarre to be true. Yet, in a world where public image is everything, and where figures like Meghan and Harry have shown a willingness to push limits, maybe nothing is too surprising anymore? If these allegations are proven true, it would represent a shocking low in a saga already filled with controversy and drama. It would suggest that the pursuit of relevance and public sympathy has taken priority over even the simplest truths, a strategy that could ultimately backfire. As the dust begins to settle on this latest scandal, it's clear the story of Meghan and Harry is far from over. This revelation could mark the beginning of the end for the couple's carefully crafted public image. The big question now is how they will respond to this challenge and whether they have the strength and credibility to withstand the storm. One thing is certain: the public will be watching closely, and every move they make will be more heavily scrutinized than ever before. For Meghan, this may be her last chance to regain control on a journey already filled with ups and downs. For Harry, it could be a moment of reflection, a time to consider just how far he is willing to go to stand by his wife and the decisions that have brought them to this point. Whatever comes next, one thing is clear: the world is paying attention. But to fully understand the impact of this revelation, we need to look deeper. It's important to explore the hidden motives and dynamics that might have driven such an elaborate plan and consider the broader consequences this could have for everyone involved. If we entertain the possibility that these MI6 claims hold some truth, we have to ask what could drive someone to orchestrate such an extreme deception. At the core of this is the issue of control. From her early days in the public eye, Meghan Markle has shown a strong desire to shape and control the narrative around her life. This need to manage her public image, which began in Hollywood and grew within the royal family, seems to have intensified after leaving her royal duties. Think about it, Meghan often portrays herself as a misunderstood figure, constantly battling a hostile media and an unbending establishment. She's claimed to seek privacy, yet repeatedly steps into the spotlight through high-profile interviews, podcasts, and book deals to tell her side of the story. If Archie and Lilibet were indeed fictional, it would be the ultimate example of her attempt to control public perception and hold onto the narrative. But why children? Children create a powerful emotional pull. They spark empathy, represent innocence, and add layers of struggle and hope to a story. To the public, a young mother is often seen as nurturing and relatable. If Meghan's goal was to strengthen her image as both a modern mother and a rebellious royal, then fabricating the existence of two children could be seen as a strategic though desperate move. This also hints at a deeper psychological issue. How far is too far when it comes to controlling one's public image? To fabricate something as personal and significant as children shows a detachment from reality that's both disturbing and risky. It suggests a mindset so obsessed with control that ethical, moral, and personal boundaries become blurred. Another key factor is the environment surrounding Meghan and Harry. Since moving to the US, they have surrounded themselves with people who seem to share their worldview, creating an echo chamber that reinforces their opinions and validates their choices. This is a classic case of confirmation bias, where people only accept information that aligns with their beliefs and reject anything that challenges them. In this kind of environment, it's easy to see how they might come to believe their own stories, no matter how far-fetched they seem to outsiders. If everyone around them, publicists, friends, allies, continues to support their choices and narratives, Meghan and Harry are less likely to confront reality or face the consequences of their actions. The American media landscape, with its obsession over celebrity culture, often nurtures such stories, allowing them to thrive. The constant attention from the media and the relentless hunt for the next big story create a vicious cycle where truth becomes the victim in the race for ratings and clicks. Meghan and Harry, aware of this dynamic, might feel empowered to push the limits, knowing there will always be a platform ready to amplify their side of the story. If the MI6 allegations are proven true, it presents a dilemma for the British royal family. On one hand, it would validate their decision to distance themselves from Harry and Meghan, affirming that the couple's behavior has become too problematic. This would justify the royal family's strategy of silence, refusing to be dragged into the public mudslinging and media battles that have marked the Sussexes' public life. On the other hand, this scandal could also reflect poorly on the royal family. It might suggest that they were either complicit in a cover-up or, worse, completely unaware of the deception unfolding under their watch. The royals have always taken pride in being a stable and responsible institution, and any connection to such dishonesty could damage that image. The monarchy is founded on trust and tradition, and if it appears that those values were compromised, the consequences could be far-reaching. If members of the royal family are involved in such a fabrication, it could lead to a serious loss of credibility and public support. For a long time, Meghan and Harry enjoyed a considerable amount of sympathy from the American public. They were viewed as underdogs breaking free from an oppressive system in search of happiness and freedom. However, this latest development could signify a turning point. Americans, despite their love for celebrity culture, have a sharp sense for insincerity. If the MI6 findings gain traction, public opinion could shift dramatically against the couple. There are already signs that the American public's fascination with Meghan and Harry is fading. Their frequent media appearances, along with their perceived hypocrisy of demanding privacy while actively courting attention, have started to irritate the very audience they wish to win over. This new revelation could be the final straw, shifting the narrative from victims to manipulative players in a cynical game for attention and power. If Americans begin to see Meghan and Harry as opportunists willing to say and do anything to stay relevant, the couple could find themselves increasingly isolated. Hollywood is notoriously fickle, where yesterday's heroes can quickly become tomorrow's outcasts. Without public support, their media deals, speaking engagements, and philanthropic efforts could dry up, leaving them with fewer opportunities to shape their narrative. If Archie and Lilibet are in fact real children, the implications of this scandal on their future are significant. Born into the spotlight, these children will have their lives marked by controversy from the very start. If their existence has been publicly questioned, it could lead to a lifetime of scrutiny, doubt, and unwanted attention. Meghan and Harry's decision to expose their children to the public eye, whether they are real or fabricated, will inevitably impact how they grow up. Children should be allowed to grow up free from public expectation and judgment. Yet the Sussexes have chosen a different path for their supposed children. If they are real, one must question the ethics of raising them in such a charged and controversial atmosphere, where every aspect of their lives is up for public debate. Considering this new revelation, it's hard not to feel a mix of disbelief and cynicism. It seems absurd, almost comical, to think that anyone would fabricate the existence of children for public sympathy or personal gain. Yet, in the complex world of fame and media manipulation, this idea doesn't seem so far-fetched. After all, the line between reality and fiction in public life has never been blurrier, and the desperation to remain relevant can push even the most rational people to extreme measures. But there's a deeper, more troubling thought that arises from this scandal. If this is indeed true, then Meghan and Harry have crossed a line that few public figures would dare to tread. They have transformed their personal lives into a spectacle, using even the most sacred bond of parenthood as a tool for manipulation. If this is the path they have chosen, we must question not just their judgment but also their values. At what point does the pursuit of fame and control turn into a descent into delusion and deceit? The future for Meghan and Harry is more uncertain than ever. If the MI6 allegations gain further credibility, they will find themselves at a crossroads. They must decide whether to confront these accusations head-on, perhaps through legal action or an aggressive media campaign, or to retreat and quietly work on rebuilding their image. Both choices carry significant risks. If they choose to fight, they might only draw more attention to the allegations, deepening public skepticism. On the other hand, if they opt for silence, it could be seen as an admission of guilt. Regardless of the outcome, Meghan and Harry's brand has taken a significant hit, and it will require extraordinary efforts to recover. The only certainty is that the world will be closely watching their next moves, with the stakes higher than ever. Every action, every statement, and every decision will be scrutinized for signs of sincerity or further deceit. For Meghan and Harry, the road ahead is filled with challenges, and how they navigate these obstacles will shape their future, both as public figures and as individuals trying to define their identities in a world that is increasingly skeptical of their intentions. Ultimately, they may discover that they have reached the limits of public patience, and the only path left may be one of humility, honesty, and a genuine effort to reconnect with the truth, whatever that may be. I know Meghan had a hysterectomy when she was 28, but in this video, I will analyze the situation regarding the real Archie and reveal any abnormalities for the first time. As Archie turns 5, a typical milestone for many children involves starting school, making new friends, and beginning the structured journey of education. Yet for young Mountbatten Windsor, things seem far from ordinary. While most parents are busy preparing their little ones for their first day in the classroom, Meghan Markle is hugging kids in Colombia, far removed from her son's daily life. This raises the question, is this really how normal parents get their children ready for school, or is this yet another chapter in the Sussexes' quest for relevance? For a couple who loudly proclaim their desire to give their children a different upbringing away from the fishbowl existence that Harry says he endured under the watchful eye of the British monarchy, they appear to be doing precisely what they claim to despise. The irony is striking. Harry moved his family across the Atlantic seeking freedom, normalcy, and an escape from the alleged racism in the UK. Yet here we are, witnessing a similar media circus surrounding Archie and Lilibet, with the Sussexes seemingly unable or unwilling to let go of their public profile. When Harry and Meghan stepped away from the royal family, their goal seemed simple: to shield their children from the constant glare of the public and media. They envisioned a peaceful private life with the freedoms Harry felt he missed growing up. But their actions tell a different story. Archie and Lily have been caught in the middle of their parents' continued public exposure. If Harry truly wanted a different life for his children, why are they so often in the spotlight, with their lives used to keep their parents relevant? It seems that Harry's search for privacy and normalcy has led him to recreate the very environment he tried to leave behind. Meghan's recent trip to Colombia shows this clearly. While Archie is at an age where routine and stability are important, Meghan is off once again in the middle of another public event. For someone who claims to be dedicated to motherhood, it raises questions when Meghan jets off to risky locations, leaving her children with nannies. Is this truly the best way to prepare them for the life she says she wants for them? Harry often speaks about wanting a different childhood for his kids, but his and Meghan's actions don't always match those words. He frequently talks about the mental and emotional toll of growing up in the royal spotlight, yet seems to be creating a similar environment for his own children, one filled with public appearances, media scrutiny, and constant travel. Harry's parenting style often feels more reactive than proactive. Instead of finding real ways to give his kids the quiet, private life he says he wants, he seems to be following the same path he criticizes. The couple's repeated efforts to stay in the public eye while claiming to protect their children from it show a glaring contradiction. It raises an important question: is Harry truly focused on giving his children a different life, or is he more concerned with keeping his and Meghan's celebrity status intact? The freedom he once craved now seems more like an excuse for a different kind of public life, one where they stay in the spotlight but on their own terms. Meghan's recent trip to Colombia, where she embraced her role as a humanitarian, may have looked admirable, but it also brings up serious concerns about her priorities as a mother. While she poses for photos with children abroad, where is Archie, who was there to guide him through these crucial early years, providing the stability and support he needs? For someone who has often emphasized the importance of family and mental health, Meghan's actions hint that she may be more focused on maintaining her public image than truly addressing her children's needs. Meghan's desire to be seen as both a global humanitarian and a modern mother seems at odds with the reality of leaving her own children behind to boost her public image. By leaving Archie and Lilibet with nannies while she embarks on global trips, the gap between her words and actions only grows wider. Her pursuit of fame and relevance seems to have taken priority over the essential, day-to-day responsibilities of motherhood. It makes one wonder if her public shows of empathy are meant to distract from the contradictions in her own life. The Sussexes' claim of wanting a private life seems less believable when compared to their public behavior. Although Harry and Meghan stepped down from their royal roles, it feels like they've simply exchanged one kind of public exposure for another. Their media strategy, filled with tell-all interviews, documentaries, and public appearances, only keeps alive the very environment they once criticized. If they truly wanted a quiet, private life for their children, they could have followed the path of other royals who have managed to live out of the spotlight. Instead, Harry and Meghan seem driven by a constant need for attention, always finding new ways to stay in the headlines. Sadly, their children are caught in the middle of their parents' very public fight for relevance. The irony is hard to miss. Harry and Meghan claim they want to protect their kids from the public eye, yet they've surrounded them with a media circus just as intrusive as the royal life they left behind. Their attempt to profit from their royal ties while openly criticizing the very institution only adds to the hypocrisy. What makes this situation especially frustrating is the glaring hypocrisy surrounding the Sussexes' actions. They claim to want a normal life as parents, but their choices suggest otherwise. While they travel the world speaking on parenting and mental health, their behavior hints that they are more focused on maintaining their public image than providing the stable upbringing they say they value. Harry and Meghan's ongoing pursuit of fame and fortune, all while claiming to do good, is starting to wear thin. Their attempts to present themselves as defenders of privacy and normalcy seem less sincere when you consider their globe-trotting lifestyle, media deals, and constant public appearances. It's one thing to stand for change and call out injustices, it's another to do so while living a lifestyle that contradicts those very values. The gap between what they say and what they do is becoming harder to ignore, and it's likely only a matter of time before the public starts losing patience. As Meghan and Harry continue their quest for relevance, it's hard not to feel concern for Archie and Lilibet. These two young children are caught in a public spectacle, entangled in a complex and often contradictory narrative crafted by their parents. While Harry and Meghan talk about mental health and the importance of a stable upbringing, they seem unaware of the potential impact their own choices could have on their children. Kids need stability, routine, and privacy, things that are difficult to provide when your parents are constantly in the headlines, moving from one controversy to the next. The constant media exposure, combined with their parents' unpredictable actions, could have lasting effects on Archie and Lilibet's well-being. If Harry and Meghan truly want to give their children a different life, perhaps it's time to step back from the spotlight, stop making themselves the focus of every story, and prioritize the stable, grounded upbringing they claim to value. They claim to value privacy and a different life for their children, but if they continue down this path, Archie and Lilibet may find themselves trapped in the same public fishbowl Harry and Meghan were so eager to leave behind. Reflecting on their actions, it's hard not to feel frustrated. There's a noticeable lack of self-awareness in their behavior, and a refusal to acknowledge how their choices often contradict their stated values. They portray themselves as victims and champions of justice and privacy, yet their actions suggest they are more focused on maintaining their public image than actually living the quiet, private life they say they want. If they truly wanted a different life for their children, they could have quietly moved to a secluded estate, far from the cameras, and focused on their family. Instead, they've chosen to stay in the spotlight, leveraging their royal ties while criticizing the very attention that comes with it. It seems like Harry and Meghan want the best of both worlds, to be private citizens when it suits them, but to be treated like royals when it doesn't. This constant back and forth only weakens their credibility and alienates the public they are so eager to win over. So where do they go from here? If they genuinely want to protect their children and give them a different life, serious changes are needed. They must step away from the public eye, stop stirring up controversy, and start focusing on what truly matters: their family. This might mean giving up some of the perks and privileges they've grown used to, but it could also bring them the peace and privacy they claim to want. It may require rethinking their priorities, letting go of their need to always be seen and heard, and finding new ways to make a difference in the world without being at the center of every story. For Harry, this might mean reconnecting with his roots, realizing that his family ties aren't something to be ashamed of, but something to honor and appreciate. For Meghan, it could involve stepping back from the spotlight and embracing the quieter, more personal side of life, something that seems to have been overshadowed by her pursuit of fame. When we look past the surface and dig into the complexities of Harry and Meghan's public image and parenting decisions, it becomes clear that each new chapter in their story brings added layers of contradiction. Their decision to step away from royal duties and seek a normal life has been anything but simple, and their recent actions highlight an even greater gap between what they say and what they actually do. This discrepancy is especially clear in their approach to parenting, public life, and their ongoing quest for relevance. Let's explore some fresh perspectives that might explain why their behavior often seems contradictory and how it could impact their children, Archie and Lilibet, in ways that might have long-lasting effects. Another interesting angle to consider is the significant cost of maintaining relevance in the public eye, especially for a couple that seemingly left the UK to escape just that. While Harry and Meghan may believe they are redefining what it means to be modern royals, it appears to come at a substantial personal and familial price. In today's fast-paced media world, staying relevant requires constant content creation, controversy, and visibility, something Harry and Meghan seem to grasp well. However, this pursuit comes with the risk of overexposure, where every move, statement, and misstep is closely examined, criticized, and often mocked. They may find themselves stuck in a cycle where the only way to stay relevant is by courting controversy, a game that is as risky as it is exhausting. One has to wonder how sustainable this approach is. The public's attention can be fleeting. Today's headlines can quickly become tomorrow's forgotten stories. In their quest to remain in the spotlight, Harry and Meghan may be sacrificing their long-term credibility and, more importantly, the well-being of their family. The more they cling to their royal status while trying to distance themselves from it, the greater the risk of alienating themselves from both the public and the institution they wish to move beyond. Harry and Meghan often portray themselves as advocates for progressive, modern parenting. Yet their choices raise questions about the message they are sending, not just to the public, but more importantly, to their own children. Modern parenting typically emphasizes empathy, understanding, and active involvement, being present and engaged in a child's life. In contrast, Harry and Meghan's high-profile lifestyle filled with constant travel, public appearances, and media commitments suggests they may be more focused on their own brand than on creating a stable and nurturing environment for Archie and Lilibet. What does it mean when a parent advocates for mental health and emotional well-being while jetting off around the world, leaving their children with caregivers? Do they genuinely believe in those values, or are they simply convenient talking points for public consumption? This inconsistency sends a confusing message not only to their children but also to anyone observing. If modern parenting is about balance and authentic engagement, the Sussexes' actions seem to reflect a different set of priorities. They risk coming across as more interested in the image of being good parents than in the daily realities of actually being good parents. One of the most striking contradictions in Harry and Meghan's public life is their constant demand for privacy while participating in activities that ensure they remain in the media spotlight. This double standard hasn't gone unnoticed by the public. They left the UK claiming they wanted a quiet life, yet their actions suggest a desire to maintain or even amplify their celebrity status. This inconsistency may stem from a fundamental misunderstanding of what privacy truly means. Privacy isn't about selectively sharing information to control a narrative. It involves stepping back and allowing life to unfold without constant public commentary. Harry and Meghan seem to want it both ways, to be private citizens while still enjoying the perks of being public figures. However, in a world where every move is scrutinized, maintaining this balance is nearly impossible. Their constant switching between public and private personas is confusing not only for their children but also for their audience. It raises the question, do they genuinely seek privacy or do they simply want control? If it's the latter, they need to understand that public opinion is shaped not by their words but by their actions. Another often overlooked aspect of the Sussexes' quest for a normal life is the long-term impact on their children. Despite their parents' claims, Archie and Lilibet are growing up in an environment that is anything but typical. They are the subjects of intense public interest due to Harry and Meghan's ongoing presence in the media. By staying in the spotlight, Harry and Meghan are unintentionally ensuring that their children will never escape it. Every decision, every move, and every word will be examined and analyzed not just now, but for years to come. This could lead to a reality where Archie and Lilibet are constantly defined by their parents' choices rather than having the chance to forge their own identities. The irony is striking. In their desperate attempt to flee the royal fishbowl, Harry and Meghan may have merely placed their children in a different kind of aquarium, one where the waters are murkier and the scrutiny is just as intense. If they truly want a different life for their kids, they have to start by living it themselves. They need to step away from the media spotlight they've created and show what it really means to live a private, grounded, and authentic life. Without this change, their children may end up repeating the same patterns their parents were trying to leave behind. One of the biggest dangers for Harry and Meghan is losing their credibility. When they first left the UK, they had a powerful story to share, a journey of two people breaking free from a restrictive system to find freedom and happiness. But as time passes, this story is starting to lose its charm. Their constant contradictions, public complaints, and what seems like hypocrisy are beginning to frustrate even their supporters. People are now seeing them not as brave individuals standing up for themselves, but as privileged people who want it both ways. Their credibility is at stake, and with it, their power to inspire and influence. If they keep going in this direction, they might find themselves pushed further to the sidelines, not just within the royal family, but in the broader world as well. The public's patience isn't endless, and sooner or later, their current approach could completely backfire. Looking at Harry and Meghan's journey, it's clear they're at a turning point. They can keep pursuing relevance and stirring up controversy, or they can choose a different path, one that better reflects the values they say they stand for. This might mean stepping away from the spotlight, focusing on their family, and finding real ways to make a difference. It could also mean giving up some of the privileges of fame in exchange for a quieter, more purposeful life. The decision is theirs, but time is running out. The public's patience is wearing thin, and their actions will speak louder than any well-crafted statement. If they truly want to be seen as advocates for change, they need to start by changing themselves. One of the most striking contradictions in the Sussexes' public life is how they promote certain values while seemingly benefiting from them. They've positioned themselves as champions of mental health, equality, and environmental causes, yet their actions often tell a different story. They fly around the world in private jets while urging others to care for the environment. They live in multi-million-dollar homes while speaking about empathy and understanding for those who are less fortunate. Even their mental health advocacy feels ironic when viewed in this light. They often speak about their personal mental health struggles, but sometimes it seems they use these experiences to gain sympathy and at times even financial benefits. This can feel exploitative, especially when many others facing similar challenges lack the same platform or resources. The gap between what they preach and how they live is becoming more obvious, creating a credibility issue. People start to question whether they truly believe in the causes they promote, or if these causes are just convenient ways to keep their public image alive. The story of Harry and Meghan is one of contradictions, complexities, and high stakes. They are two individuals trying to redefine their roles in a rapidly changing world. Yet, in their pursuit of relevance and recognition, they risk losing themselves and, more importantly, the public's trust, the very people they are eager to connect with. If they want to be remembered for more than just their controversies, they need to start living their values, not just talking about them. They must make the tough decisions that come with a real desire for change, even if it means stepping out of the spotlight for the sake of their children and their own legacy. They need to find a way to balance their pursuit of relevance with a commitment to authenticity. In the end, it won't be the headlines that define them, but the actions they take and the lives they lead. Meanwhile, Harry seems to be struggling. His recent appearance on The Graham Norton Show has once again brought him into the spotlight, but not in a positive way. What was supposed to be a fun, lighthearted show turned into another public venting session, with Harry openly criticizing his father, King Charles III. His harsh remarks, particularly about his father's parenting, shocked the audience and sparked discussions. Harry's repeated public criticisms of his family, especially his father, have now become a defining part of his image. This latest incident feels like a new low. As Harry continues to burn bridges, it raises the question, what is he really trying to achieve, and at what cost? His appearance on The Graham Norton Show was meant to be a lighthearted chat with stories about his new life in California, being a father, and dealing with public life. But the mood quickly shifted when his family came up. Despite the show's comedic vibe, Harry took the chance to criticize King Charles' parenting, calling it emotionally distant and outdated. His comments were filled with bitterness, catching both the audience and the host off guard. While this isn't the first time Harry has voiced his frustrations in public, the boldness of doing so on live television took things to a new level. Harry's words weren't just a critique of his father, they were an attack on the royal upbringing that shaped him. His comments about the stiff upper lip culture that he claims defined his childhood struck a nerve, not only with those in the studio, but also with viewers who are growing tired of his constant public criticisms. As the mood in the room turned from light to tense, Graham Norton tried to steer the conversation away, but Harry wouldn't let it go. His determination to continue dissecting his relationship with his father left the production team scrambling and ultimately led to his early exit from the show. For someone who says he wants privacy and peace, Harry's actions seem to suggest the opposite. This was yet another example of his increasingly unpredictable behavior, a prince who appears set on burning every bridge behind him. His outburst on Graham Norton's show is just one more chapter in a series of public betrayals that have come to define his life after leaving the royal family. Since stepping away from his royal duties, Harry has continuously aired his grievances against his family through interviews, memoirs, and podcasts, each time reopening old wounds. From his infamous Oprah interview to his tell-all book Spare, and now this latest public outburst, Harry's willingness to criticize his family so openly and persistently has become his trademark. While he presents these remarks as part of his journey toward healing and authenticity, they often come across as self-serving and vengeful. His harsh critiques of his father's parenting, claims of neglect, and constant attacks on the royal institution paint the picture of someone still deeply angry and hurt. But rather than seeking true reconciliation, Harry seems more focused on scoring points. What's especially puzzling is his apparent lack of awareness about the impact his words have not just on his family, but on his own public image. With each new revelation, Harry risks pushing away even those who once sympathized with him. His unfiltered comments often feel like calculated attempts to gain public sympathy, all while ignoring the serious damage they cause to his already fragile relationships. The more he speaks, the more it seems like he's not just trying to heal old wounds, but actively reopening them to keep the drama alive. Harry's latest remarks have added yet another layer of complexity to his strained relationship with King Charles. For years, their bond has been marked by tension, largely due to Harry's view of his father as emotionally distant and too focused on royal tradition. His critiques on The Graham Norton Show have only deepened this divide, painting Charles as a figure stuck in an outdated system that, in Harry's eyes, failed to give him the emotional support he needed. While Harry's criticisms of Charles' parenting style may strike a chord with some, they also come off as deeply hypocritical. Harry often condemns his father for keeping emotions bottled up, yet he chooses to air his grievances in the most public and confrontational way possible. There's a clear irony in his call for open communication and emotional support, considering his method involves blindsiding his family with harsh critiques on global platforms. Charles, for his part, has largely remained silent, embodying the very restraint that Harry seems to resent. However, the emotional toll of Harry's words is undeniable. The king is left to lead under the shadow of ongoing personal attacks from his own son, which not only undermine his authority but also paint him as a relic of the past. Harry's actions have jeopardized his relationship with his father and have fueled a narrative of a divided monarchy, one that Charles now has the unenviable task of managing. On one side, some people admire Harry for his honesty and for exposing the emotional shortcomings of royal life. They see him as a brave figure challenging the status quo, confronting his past, and demanding a better future for the next generation. To these supporters, his willingness to speak out is a necessary stand against an institution that has long been wrapped in secrecy and denial. However, there's an equally strong sense of fatigue and frustration with Harry's constant airing of personal grievances. Many have grown tired of hearing the same complaints repeated in various settings, feeling that his story has become stale and self-centered. To this audience, Harry's ongoing attacks on his family seem less like acts of courage and more like petty grievances disguised as personal truths. The backlash is further driven by the belief that Harry is still capitalizing on his royal connections, even as he criticizes them. Harry's frequent public appearances, media deals, and openness in discussing personal family matters have led many to question his true motives. Is he genuinely seeking reconciliation, or is he addicted to the attention and validation that come with these public revelations? The more Harry speaks, the more he risks alienating those who once viewed him as a sympathetic figure caught in a difficult situation. At the core of Harry's ongoing public outbursts lies an unanswered question: what does he truly want? He has repeatedly said that stepping back from royal duties was about seeking privacy, a simpler life, and the freedom to follow his own passions. Yet his actions tell a different story, one of a man who seems unable to let go of his royal past, constantly drawn back into the spotlight he claims to avoid. His relentless critiques of his family suggest a man still searching for something: validation, closure, or perhaps even revenge. In his quest to speak his truth, Harry seems to be losing sight of the very values he says he holds dear. Harry's calls for emotional connection and understanding are undermined by the way he expresses them through public shaming and criticism. It's as if he's stuck in a cycle of resentment and blame that continues to shape his relationship with his family. Some might say that what Harry truly seeks is control over his story, his legacy, and perhaps most significantly, control over the family dynamics that have always seemed beyond his reach. However, this desire for control conflicts with the nature of family relationships, which demand compromise, humility, and the acceptance of imperfections. By choosing to air his grievances in the public eye, Harry may feel a temporary sense of power, but it ultimately comes at the expense of real healing and reconciliation. If he continues down this path, he risks creating a legacy defined not by his achievements or humanitarian efforts, but by his complaints and conflicts. There was a time when Harry was seen as the relatable modern royal, a man who connected with people on a personal level and brought a refreshing authenticity to the monarchy. But that image has steadily faded, eroded by his ongoing attacks on his own family. What once may have seemed principled now comes across as petty and vindictive. Harry's repeated public outbursts not only strain his family ties, but they also risk overshadowing the causes he claims to care about. The more he's associated with scandal and criticism, the harder it becomes for people to take him seriously as an advocate for mental health, veterans, or any of the other important issues he's championed. His credibility is becoming more and more tied to his personal drama, and unless he changes the narrative, he risks becoming a caricature of himself, a man who had every chance to make a positive impact but instead chose to dwell in resentment. For Harry, moving forward requires a complete change in approach. He needs to step away from the cycle of criticism and work on rebuilding trust not only with his family but also with the public that once held him in such high esteem. This means understanding the limits of publicly airing grievances and embracing the tougher path of private reconciliation. It also means letting go of the need to always be right and instead focusing on kindness both toward himself and those he has repeatedly criticized. Harry's behavior also raises questions about the influence of his marriage to Meghan Markle. While they often present a united front, their relationship is certainly tested by the constant scrutiny and backlash that Harry's actions bring. Meghan has faced her own share of controversies, but Harry's continual focus on family drama inevitably pulls her into the spotlight. complicating their efforts to build a new life in California. The pressure on their relationship is evident, and there are signs that Harry's ongoing feud with his family is taking a toll. For Meghan, who has her own complicated history with the royal family, Harry's actions are a double-edged sword. While she may understand his desire to speak out, the constant negative attention risks overshadowing their shared projects and the brand they have worked hard to build. Harry's inability to move past his grievances keeps both him and Meghan tied to the very institution they aim to escape. This dynamic not only strains their relationship but also complicates their efforts to establish a new life apart from the royal spotlight. This dynamic not only strains their personal relationship but also limits their ability to fully embrace the new life they claim to desire. If Harry truly wants to protect his marriage and create a future free from royal drama, he needs to find a way to resolve his issues privately without constantly dragging Meghan and, by extension, their children into the conflict. Reflecting on Harry's latest public outburst, it's hard not to feel a mix of frustration and sadness. Here is a man who has been given so much a loving family, a platform most people could only dream of, and the chance to make a real difference in the world. Yet time and again, Harry squanders these gifts in a futile attempt to rewrite the past and seek validation through public disputes. His insistence on airing grievances has become exhausting, not just for his family but for everyone around him. Watching his ongoing criticism of his father and broader family often feels less like a sincere quest for understanding and more like a desperate plea for attention. It seems as though Harry is trapped in a never-ending cycle of blame, unable to move forward because he's too focused on the perceived injustices of his past. As his personal vendetta spills into the public sphere, the more troubling aspects of his behavior come to light: a desperate need for relevance, a profound identity crisis, and a careless disregard for the consequences of his actions. This is why I want to explore the new dimensions of Harry's dramatic spiral, examining the latest conflicts and contradictions that shape his troubled journey. Harry's ongoing tirades against his family reveal a man deeply conflicted about his identity. On one hand, he portrays himself as a liberated rebel who has broken free from the constraints of royal life to create his own path. On the other hand, his frequent references to his upbringing, his title, and his grievances with the royal family suggest he is still very much tied to his past. Harry's identity as a prince is both his greatest asset and his heaviest burden, a reality he both resents and clings to. This identity crisis plays out in his public persona, where Harry seems torn between being seen as a victim of royal mistreatment and a self-made man forging a new path. His repeated criticisms of King Charles, the institution, and even his late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, reveal a man still seeking validation from the very system he claims to reject. Harry's need to frequently reference his royal roots, even as he denounces them, highlights a deep-seated confusion about who he is and what he stands for. This inner conflict not only makes his public statements seem disingenuous but also undermines his credibility. How can he demand privacy and independence while constantly using his royal past to maintain relevance? At the heart of Harry's public struggles is an identity crisis, and until he can reconcile these conflicting parts of himself, he will remain caught in a cycle of self-contradiction and public backlash. Harry's demand for privacy has been a recurring theme, yet his actions often tell a different story. From revealing interviews and documentaries to unauthorized biographies, Harry and Meghan have consistently aired their most personal grievances on the world stage. This contradiction between Harry's stated desire for privacy and peace and his willingness to publicly discuss family conflicts has not gone unnoticed. The public's growing frustration with Harry stems not only from his constant criticisms, but also from the clear hypocrisy that surrounds his behavior. Harry's claims that the press hounded him and Meghan, forcing them to leave the UK due to media intrusion, may have some truth, but his actions suggest a readiness to seek that same attention when it suits him. His frequent media appearances, release of personal footage, and participation in headline-grabbing interviews directly conflict with his professed wish to shield his family from the spotlight. It's a classic case of wanting to have his cake and eat it too, using the media as both a shield and a weapon, depending on the situation. This hypocrisy is especially striking because it contradicts the very values Harry claims to uphold. If privacy and mental health are truly his priorities, why continue engaging in the public spectacle that only fuels these issues? The more Harry speaks, the clearer it becomes that his battle isn't just with the media or the royal family, but with his own struggle to step back and live the quiet life he says he desires. His ongoing feud with his family seems to have shifted from seeking reconciliation to an almost compulsive need to be heard. Recent comments about King Charles and other family members suggest a deep-rooted resentment that goes beyond simple differences of opinion. Harry's grievances appear to have become an obsession, and his fixation on blaming his family for his unhappiness seems to be pushing him further away from any chance of true healing. This obsession is particularly harmful because it has trapped Harry in a cycle of negativity. Instead of focusing on his new life in California, his family, or his charitable work, he is repeatedly drawn back into the drama of his past. His refusal to move on has not only damaged his relationships with his family, but has also tarnished his public image. What was once viewed as a bold stand against a rigid institution now feels like a never-ending, petty feud that benefits no one, least of all Harry himself. Harry's constant public criticism of his family has become an unhealthy coping mechanism, a way to deflect attention from his own struggles and the challenges of his new life. Each time he speaks out, he reinforces the image of himself as a victim, unable to escape the shadows of his past. This fixation is not only harming his relationships, but also preventing him from embracing the future he claims to desire. Harry's willingness to speak openly about his family's flaws has alienated many who were once close to him. Friends, former colleagues, and even once supportive media figures have begun to distance themselves, wary of being caught in the crossfire of his public grievances. The prince who once charmed the world with his candor and relatability is now seen by many as unpredictable and volatile. The fallout from Harry's recent comments on The Graham Norton Show is just the latest in a string of self-inflicted wounds. With each public airing of family drama, Harry isolates himself further, cutting ties with the support networks he once depended on. The relationships he has damaged in his quest for vindication won't be easily repaired. The more he alienates those around him, the greater the risk that he will end up with nothing but his grievances. Harry's growing reputation as someone willing to expose even his closest confidants for the sake of a headline has made him a liability in many circles. His unpredictability and seeming disregard for the impact of his words have transformed him from a once relatable figure into someone who is increasingly difficult to support. While Harry has positioned himself as a strong advocate for mental health, using his platform to promote openness and support for those struggling emotionally, his focus on family drama is starting to damage his credibility in this area. It's challenging to take his calls for empathy and understanding seriously when his public behavior often lacks these very qualities. His criticism of his father's parenting, frequent references to his past traumas, and ongoing feuds with his family contribute to a narrative that seems more about blame than genuine healing. For someone who has championed the importance of mental health, Harry's approach feels counterproductive, if not hypocritical. His failure to model the behaviors he promotes, such as empathy, forgiveness, and personal accountability, diminishes his credibility as a mental health advocate. The public's growing weariness with his personal dramas threatens to overshadow the meaningful work he has done in this space. The more he focuses on grievances, the less attention is given to his charitable efforts and his push to raise awareness about mental health. If Harry truly wants to make a difference, he'll need to shift his focus away from dwelling on the past and start demonstrating the resilience and positivity he so often speaks of. One of the most concerning aspects of his behavior is his increasingly strained relationship with the truth. Harry has repeatedly framed his narrative as a quest to tell his side of the story, but his version of events often conflicts with established facts, other family members' accounts, and even his own previous statements. Harry's pattern of selective truth-telling has left many questioning his reliability and integrity. His tendency to reshape events to suit his narrative doesn't just damage his family, it also hurts his own credibility. By constantly revising his story to fit each new interview or appearance, Harry weakens his claim to be a truthful and honest figure. This creates the impression that he is more focused on controlling the narrative than genuinely seeking understanding or reconciliation. These inconsistencies make it easier for critics to dismiss his claims as exaggerated or self-serving. Each time his story changes, it adds to the perception that he's playing fast and loose with the facts, using his platform not to inform but to influence public perception. For someone who claims to value honesty above all else, Harry's relationship with the truth is becoming increasingly strained and problematic. The public's perception of Harry has shifted dramatically in recent years. Once viewed as the charming and relatable prince who captured hearts with his warmth and vulnerability, He is now often seen as a bitter, entitled figure more focused on airing grievances than contributing positively to the world. This change in sentiment stems from his relentless focus on personal vendettas, which have overshadowed the qualities that once endeared him to so many. The backlash against Harry isn't solely about his remarks, it's about the growing sense that he has squandered the goodwill that once surrounded him. People are growing weary of his constant critiques of his family, and many now view his actions as self-indulgent and destructive. Each time Harry lashes out, he risks alienating the very audience that once supported him. For Harry, this decline in public sympathy presents a significant problem. Without the same level of support and admiration, his platform becomes less influential, and his efforts to create change may struggle to gain the traction they once did. If he continues down this path, he risks being seen as a figure more concerned with settling scores than making a meaningful difference. Harry's ability to influence and advocate for the causes he cares about is closely tied to his public image, and as that image continues to be tarnished, his effectiveness as a figure of change diminishes. By airing his personal battles in such a public way, he hasn't just strained his relationships with family, but he's also eroded the public's trust in him as a credible and empathetic figure. Looking at Harry's ongoing saga, there's a sense of wasted potential. He had the unique opportunity to redefine what it means to be a modern royal, using his platform to do good, to create positive change, and to forge a new path for his family. Yet, time and again, Harry seems to sabotage his own progress, caught in a relentless cycle of blame, resentment, and self-inflicted drama. His refusal to move on from his grievances indicates a deeper inability to accept his past and truly embrace the future. If Harry continues down this path, he risks not only alienating the public further, but also losing the chance to build something meaningful outside of the royal shadow. To move forward, he may need to let go of the constant need to publicly relitigate old wounds and focus instead on the causes and values he claims to hold dear. Harry's constant need to critique his family and reshape his story reflects a man still deeply hurt, grappling with his past yet seemingly unable to find a healthier path forward. His greatest challenge may not lie in his fractured relationships with his family, the relentless media scrutiny, or public opinion. Instead, it may be his own inability to let go of the past and embrace the present. In many ways, Harry's journey has become a cautionary tale, a reminder of how unchecked anger and the search for validation can consume even those with the greatest privileges. His fixation on his own pain at the expense of everything else risks leaving him isolated and embittered, trapped in a narrative he has constructed himself. If Harry truly wants to find peace and purpose, he will need to look beyond his grievances. Moving forward will require him to accept the imperfections of his past and focus on building a life defined not by conflict, but by compassion, growth, and a genuine desire to make a positive difference. Only then can he step out of the shadow of resentment and find the healing he so desperately seeks. Reflecting on Prince Harry's ongoing saga, it's hard not to feel a sense of frustration and disappointment. Here is someone who had every advantage: wealth, influence, a loving family, and the unique opportunity to use his platform for positive change. Yet Harry seems determined to squander these blessings in a relentless pursuit of personal grievances and public validation. His constant criticism of his family, his inability to let go of past hurts, and his fixation on rewriting his story have become exhausting not just for those involved, but for everyone watching. Harry's actions reveal a deeper issue. He appears caught in a cycle of blame, unable to accept responsibility for his role in the conflicts that define his life. It's as if he's stuck in a loop, constantly reliving the same dramas and remaining unwilling to move forward. While he often talks about wanting privacy, healing, and a new beginning, his actions contradict these desires. True healing requires accountability, growth, and a willingness to step outside the narrative of victimhood. Without these steps, Harry risks not only alienating those around him, but also missing the chance to transform his experiences into a source of strength and inspiration. Ultimately, the journey toward peace and purpose requires more than just words. It demands genuine effort to reconcile with the past and to forge a new path defined by resilience and understanding. Yet his actions suggest the opposite. By airing his family's dirty laundry on every public platform available, Harry seems more interested in settling scores than in finding genuine peace. What's particularly troubling is the impact this behavior has on his credibility and public image. Harry has positioned himself as a champion of mental health and a voice for those struggling with emotional trauma, but his constant public outbursts undermine this message. It's hard to take his advocacy seriously when his actions often reflect a lack of empathy, forgiveness, and self-awareness. Harry's story could have been one of growth and transformation, but instead it's becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting bitterness and resentment dictate your actions. In my view, Harry's greatest battle isn't with his family or the media, it's with himself. Until he can confront the unresolved issues that drive his behavior, he will continue to be trapped in a cycle of conflict and discontent. Harry has the potential to be a force for good, but first, he needs to let go of his need to constantly prove his point and start focusing on what really matters, building a healthy, meaningful life for himself and his family. The sooner he realizes that peace cannot be found through public vendetta, the sooner he can start healing and maybe, just maybe, reclaim the respect and support he once had. Harry and Meghan have failed miserably once again with what appears to be a horrible idea. Their dissatisfaction with unfavorable public opinion and negative publicity, which they believe is unjust, has prompted them to take drastic measures. This time, they've restricted their Colombia trip to such an extreme degree that it raises eyebrows. Their approach bears similarities to that of tyrants, which is hardly a good look. Rumors are now circulating that this was the real reason Mr. Kettler left just before this trip. It seems he was not receptive to the concept of absolute censorship, which demonstrates his wisdom. Harry and Meghan appear to be the only people on the planet who believe their media portrayal is unjust, regardless of the reality of the situation. No matter who you are, how unjust the media coverage may or may not be, or what your personal feelings are on the subject, suppressing the press in this manner is a terrible look from so many perspectives. As we've all discussed for quite some time, one of the Sussexes' ongoing issues is their inability to read the room. This latest attempt to control their narrative instead of engaging with it reflects a disconnect from the public's perception and reality. If they genuinely want to foster a positive relationship with their audience, they need to recognize that transparency and openness will always resonate more than attempts at censorship and control. They either can't or won't read the room. Harry and Meghan seem utterly disconnected from public perception and the temperature of the audience. They don't grasp the significance of how they are viewed by the public, nor do they seem to understand how the media operates. However, they are convinced, especially Harry, that everything from unfavorable press coverage to being voted the most loathed public figures for the second year in a row is entirely unjust. It's simply not fair, Harold explains. Their response to these challenges is to exert even more control, attempting to manipulate the narrative and push for positive press coverage. However, that approach is fundamentally flawed. It has never worked for anyone, and it never will. History has shown that trying to compel public opinion or good news coverage only backfires. It's akin to wrestling. When promoters try to impose a wrestler on the fans, the audience will reject that wrestler outright. They don't want to be told who to prefer, they want to make that choice for themselves. Harry and Meghan's attempts to force their desired narrative onto the public are likely to provoke resistance rather than acceptance. Until they realize that authentic engagement and openness are far more effective than control and manipulation, they will continue to struggle with their public image. People in public spaces don't want to be told who to like. Harry and Meghan have often tried to get people to support them, but it's just not going to happen. They've controlled their trip by sharing only the photos they want people to see. Many of these pictures were taken by their press officer, meaning they have the rights to these images. They choose to share only the ones where they look happy or are hugging strangers. The issue here is censorship. When the truth is hidden, it spreads misinformation. This stops people from forming their own opinions. It's important to realize that we should only believe and report this narrow version of events, but there's so much more to the story. There are many hidden details and other perspectives we aren't seeing. For instance, during that trip, the Sussexes kept many images to themselves. They didn't want anyone to know that there weren't large crowds to see them. The auditoriums were only about a third to a fourth full. They also didn't want people to notice that there weren't long lines of fans waiting to greet them, like there are for real royals. Additionally, they tried to hide the heavy security presence, including tanks, police, and shields at schools. They wanted us to focus on only small parts of the situation. Hiding the truth can be misleading because it changes the real story by leaving out important parts. That's not right. It frustrates the public because Harry and Meghan claim to stand against disinformation, yet they spread it themselves. Harry especially talks a lot about misinformation, but at the same time he limits press freedom and hides the truth. By keeping things from the public, it's almost like lying. What he really wants is to control the media's story, which is why he's carefully crafting a picture-perfect version of their trip to Colombia. It's strange, but in the end it could backfire on them. People are left wondering, what are they hiding? Why not let journalists in to take photos? What's really going on? Why are they so secretive? Is there something they don't want us to see, or is there something about themselves they'd rather keep hidden? What's the big deal? Are they just trying to avoid being caught unhappy, or is there something more? When people start asking, what are you hiding? It's a sign that your strategy is backfiring. From a public relations standpoint, you don't want people questioning if something is being concealed. Ideally, you offer the typical access, allowing transparency so everyone can see there's nothing to hide. Harper's Bazaar was the only publication granted access to the Sussexes' events. Why? They claimed it was to ensure the trip was portrayed correctly, but that's not their role. Hate to break it to you, Harry and Meghan, but it's not your job to decide if journalists and the press are reporting accurately. Journalists are there to share the facts about what happened. They contribute to a balanced view of events. Limiting access to just one outlet only fuels suspicion. The preservation of history relies on a diversity of perspectives. Just because Harry and Meghan disagree with a journalist's angle or opinion doesn't make it wrong. Like many of their strategies, this approach has backfired. By denying access to legitimate media outlets such as BBC, Daily Mail, and CNN, these outlets couldn't independently verify or report on the events. As a result, they didn't fully trust the Sussex Puerto Rico release or the Harper's Bazaar reporter, who was inexperienced and provided unnecessary, fluffy details instead of hard facts. Harper's Bazaar had an exclusive arrangement with the Sussexes for the trip, which created a monetary incentive and potential bias. This made the outlet an unreliable source, as any publication commissioned or paid for by its subject is inherently less trustworthy. Because credible news organizations couldn't verify the information, they simply chose not to report on it at all. This only added to the skepticism surrounding the Sussexes' media management. They ended up with less coverage and found themselves on the back foot. After the trip, they had to play catch up as the criticism became more widespread and harsh. Damage control efforts, such as releasing statements to explain themselves, came too late. It gave the impression that donations were made only after the backlash, and the responses they provided were vague, unclear, and insufficient. Needless to say, it would have been easy for them to implement a far more effective PR strategy, something most people could come up with in less than 5 minutes. But more importantly, it brought them, and everyone watching, back to square one. Public figures like royals or those aspiring to be royals, such as the Sussexes, depend heavily on the media. Harry and Meghan became frustrated with the press because it wasn't always flattering. Now they seem determined to create a completely filtered media presence, claiming they want to ensure everything is represented correctly. Feelings are not facts. In an effort to control the narrative, Harry and Meghan severely restricted their PR, making themselves seem like dictators trying to censor everything. This isn't just about censorship. It raises the question, why can't they just let the press document their events like anyone else? It feels suspicious, almost fishy. Even without all the secrecy, the trip itself seemed pointless. It came across as a PR stunt aimed at getting staged photos for their Archua website, more like a photo op than a meaningful event. This approach only pushed them further into obscurity, emphasizing the disconnect between them and the royal family's much more open and transparent approach. Instead of boosting their image, it highlighted how different and in some ways ineffective the Sussex media strategy has become. A key flaw in Harry and Meghan's ongoing feud with the media is their inability to strike a balanced relationship, unlike the royal family. The royals maintain a somewhat measured relationship with the press, where boundaries are respected and mutual understanding is built. They know that the media plays a crucial role in covering their official duties and must be kept informed of important events. They also acknowledge the public's significant interest in their lives, so they make concessions by sharing family photos and milestones. In return, the press tends to respect the royal family's private lives. They don't hound the children, take unauthorized photos, or follow them during off-duty activities. This arrangement works well, offering the public fair access to these figures while still granting the royals a degree of privacy and autonomy. It comes with the understanding that not every story will be glowing, but it allows for a balanced, respectful relationship between the media and the monarchy. There will always be criticism and sometimes even fake stories. Mistakes happen, and when they do, they're covered in the news. But the royal family has shown that they're skilled at not letting these things get under their skin. They're rarely caught off guard or making big mistakes. The royals have proven that it's possible to receive almost entirely positive publicity while maintaining privacy and boundaries simply by allowing the press normal access to their public-facing activities without resorting to lawsuits or harsh censorship. The key to this balance is being pleasant, uncontroversial, and approachable. Harry and Meghan, on the other hand, haven't embraced this approach. They haven't tried to avoid controversy or made an effort to be less aggressive and more responsible in their actions. For example, traveling to countries that are arguably less safe than the UK while complaining about their security in the UK sends a contradictory message. It's a move that will always come off as hypocritical. Criticism is inevitable when actions appear hypocritical. If you choose to visit countries with high poverty levels and economic challenges while reducing your own security concerns, it's no surprise that you're called out for hypocrisy, because that's exactly how it appears. If you wish to visit these places, take responsibility for your expenses and issue a discreet statement beforehand, making it clear that no taxpayer money will be spent. That way, you won't have to defend your ethics. But traveling without a clear purpose and staging photo ops while trying to come across as royalty is hard to spin in a way that appeals to the public. It simply doesn't look good. A more grounded approach without constant complaints about your time spent working with the royal family would have made things seem far less hypocritical and strange. It's clear that their approach to publicity is centered around control, almost as if it's their only option. The truth is, you shouldn't have to manage the news or your public image if you're not doing anything questionable or controversial. If you're acting above board, the press doesn't need to be controlled. After all, the key phrase here is free press ideally, it's meant to be uncontrolled. The Sussexes are very image conscious, which is ironic given that Netflix once pointed out that it's always about how it looks as if that's a bad thing. The reality is, it's neither good nor bad, it's just the way things are. A picture can say 1,000 words, and most people only read the headlines and glance at the images. Public figures need to be mindful of how things appear. But Harry and Meghan seem especially fixated on this, which makes it all the more ironic that they're getting caught up in the very image game they try so hard to control. Harry and Meghan seem determined to craft a specific public image, and lately they've been pushing this hugger persona. Previously, they tried to project themselves as victims, and before that, they aimed for a philanthropic, humanitarian image reminiscent of Princess Diana. The problem is, none of it seems genuine. It comes off as forced, and people can sense that. Harry appears to be the one controlling the media narrative, often reacting harshly to negative coverage, as if he's personally offended by any criticism. It's almost like he's saying, how dare anyone disapprove of us or what we're doing. Harry has long been known for his petulance, while Meghan is the one focused on managing their image, constantly pushing certain narratives like holding hands, hugging, or ensuring she's seen walking ahead. When a negative story about her surfaces, Meghan tends to respond with misleading information to reshape public perception. For instance, with this hugger image, she seems to be using it as a response to claims that she's cold, calculating, or even a bully. Harry, on the other hand, is more likely to hit back with a press statement or a lawsuit when they face negative headlines. If Harry and Meghan continue their antagonistic approach toward the media, they're setting themselves up for failure. Trying to control or censor the press, especially in countries with a long history of free media like the UK and the US, simply won't work. It's a losing battle. The public and the press have a deep-rooted expectation that media should remain free and uncensored, and trying to manipulate or restrict it will only backfire. If they genuinely want favorable press coverage, the solution isn't censorship, it's adjusting their actions, words, and overall tone. Meghan, for instance, often speaks in a condescending manner that doesn't resonate well with people. Her tone and cadence come across as patronizing, and it's no surprise that this alienates audiences. Even politicians have moved away from using such a speaking style because it has proven to be off-putting. Focus groups have shown that people tend to dislike the rhythm and tone Meghan often uses, and this is likely contributing to the couple's negative public image. Instead of trying so hard to be liked or to force the media into portraying them in a certain way, they might see better results by simply being more authentic and less controlling. If they stop trying to micromanage every aspect of their image, journalists might be more inclined to report positively on what they naturally observe rather than feeling stifled or manipulated. It's true that transparency often breeds trust, and if someone isn't engaging in deceitful behavior, there's generally less for the media to criticize. If Harry and Meghan were genuinely open and authentic, they might find that negative press would diminish. However, as you pointed out, there are lingering questions about what they're trying to conceal. Their recent trips to Colombia and Nigeria raised eyebrows, particularly given the noticeable lack of public interest or engagement compared to royal family appearances. If they were hoping to garner attention and support, their efforts fell short, which may prompt them to limit media access and control their narrative even more. Showing up late to events, regardless of status, can be viewed as disrespectful, and it's understandable that they would want to downplay instances like that. Regarding Harry's hand on the back of the lady's chair, context is essential. Such gestures can be interpreted in many ways depending on the situation and the relationship between the individuals involved. Some may see it as a protective or supportive gesture, while others could interpret it as a sign of possessiveness or overstepping boundaries. It's clear that Harry and Meghan's every move is scrutinized, and how they navigate these interactions can either bolster or undermine their image. Engaging with the public in a more genuine way might help shift the narrative around them. What do you think? You bring up some valid points about the photo and the dynamics at play. The woman's stiff posture does suggest discomfort, likely stemming from the pressure of the situation. When someone feels constrained in their movement, especially in a public setting, it can lead to an awkwardness that's evident to observers. The need to maintain a certain image or avoid the appearance of intimacy can lead to these kinds of uncomfortable interactions. From a PR perspective, this kind of situation can indeed backfire. Harry's gesture could be interpreted in various ways, but it risks coming across as invasive, especially if the woman feels uncomfortable. It can create a narrative that overshadows whatever positive message or image they might have been trying to convey. Moreover, the optics of Harry and Meghan often trying to position themselves as central figures in a room can come off as overreaching, especially when public sentiment seems to be shifting. They often project an image of relevance, but if the actions and interactions don't align with that perception, it can lead to criticism and ridicule. In the end, it underscores the importance of genuine interactions in the public eye. Authenticity resonates more with audiences than carefully curated images. If Harry and Meghan want to regain some public goodwill, they might benefit from fostering more genuine connections rather than relying on staged moments that risk scrutiny. What do you think would help them navigate these challenges better? You've captured the essence of the public's growing skepticism towards Harry and Meghan perfectly. The juxtaposition of their claims for privacy and their simultaneous pursuit of fame and fortune creates a glaring irony that hasn't gone unnoticed. It's almost as if they're caught in a relentless cycle where each new endeavor, be it a podcast, book, or public appearance, only serves to draw more attention to their perceived contradictions. Their ability to position themselves as victims while benefiting from lucrative deals often leaves people feeling frustrated. The narrative they've constructed around being crusaders for change feels increasingly hollow when juxtaposed against the realities of their actions. Their high-profile ventures, whether it's Meghan's forays into business or Harry's legal battles, seem less like noble pursuits and more like a series of attempts to maintain relevance in an ever-changing landscape. The public appetite for authenticity is strong, and when figures like Harry and Meghan fail to deliver it, they risk losing the very support they seek. Their ongoing struggles, whether it's negative press, unfulfilled projects, or family disputes, provide a kind of drama that feels almost scripted, like a soap opera where the characters fail to learn from their mistakes. Ultimately, many people seem to take satisfaction in watching this narrative unfold. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of fame without substance can lead to a downfall, and sometimes reality has a way of catching up with those who seem to think they can sidestep the consequences of their choices. It will be interesting to see how they navigate this shifting public perception moving forward. What do you think would be the most effective step they could take to regain some credibility? Meghan seems to have skipped teaching him about American values. We really value our right to speak freely, and we won't just back down because a complaining prince says so. If Harry wants to share his truth, he should first understand that here, people will respond openly. It's time for Harry to sit back and keep quiet, because his unthinking rants are becoming tiresome. For someone who talks a lot about privacy and respect, he sure enjoys airing his personal issues in public like it's a dramatic play. Here's a reality check: he's in America now, and his sad story doesn't resonate with us. Instead of lecturing us on how to act, he should learn how things actually work around here. Meghan, with her never-ending search for approval and her strange need to play the victim, should realize that we're not buying it. We're fed up with their double standards, the mixed messages, the showboating, and the irony of complaining about the press while reaching out to them at every opportunity. If they're really so upset by the criticism, here's a fresh idea: take a break and live the private life they claim to want. Let's be honest, avoiding all the drama would be ideal for everyone. But let's face it, that would mean stepping out of the spotlight, and we all know that's just not going to happen. Harry seems to have bought into the polished image that the British royal family's PR team has crafted for him. In reality, though, he's not charming. He comes across as rude and unpleasant. And as for the title of hero from Afghanistan, that's far from the truth. He earned the nickname Bunker Harry because he failed 3 of his pilot exams. Even his commander mentioned after the release of Spare that Harry was mostly stationed far from any real action and never saw combat. Neither he nor the people surrounding him are easy to like. They come off as arrogant and out of touch, clinging to privilege without any real talent or skills to support themselves. And honestly, it's unsettling to see them using other people's children for photo ops. The fact that they often have access to kids without their parents being present while they push their confusing mental health ideas feels more than just wrong, it feels disturbing. It seems Rachel is just trying to share her past troubles for attention, mainly to showcase her various outfits. It all feels like one big photo shoot. Why was she holding a girl who clearly didn't want to be held by a stranger? That was so inappropriate. Meghan doesn't seem to care about how her actions affect other kids, even if it makes them scared. And what about Harry? He looked a bit off while holding a little boy's hand, making them both seem uncomfortable. Harry and Meghan really don't come off as good people. It's bold of them to release a polo preview right after Princess Catherine made her announcement. They seem to think they can grab the spotlight from the royal family, but they're mistaken. People have lost interest in this couple. They just keep saying the same old toxic things, and honestly, it's getting dull. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and share.